Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today is a solo episode. Last time I said I was going to keep it short to half an hour, and I think I ended up going closer to 3/4 of an hour. But today, I do want to keep it a little bit shorter. I want to talk about what do we do in the absence, or what do we do? Well, what do we do in the absence of the miracle weight loss drugs that are out on the market these days, the GLP-1 agonists. And so the current ones that are widely available, or not that widely available, but that are available on the market, would be Ozempic, which was the first one of the two that hit the market. A couple of years ago now. It goes by semaglutide, is its chemical name. And then we have tirzepatide, the newer one, which is called Mounjaro as a brand name. And these compounds, as you all know, many of you know anyway, have taken the market. Well, they've taken the world by storm. It turns out that they work really well, almost too well. But they work really well, and they work so well. They're incredible for people with type 2 diabetes. They're unbelievable for people who suffer from obesity. They're really, really incredible compounds for people who are just stuck. No matter what they do, they eat less, they move more, all the things. Their bodies are so dysregulated that they just can't release extra weight. And it turns out that these compounds are remarkable at moving the needle for many of these people. The cool thing is, and I'm going to tell you things that you probably already know here, is that these compounds also have a lot of other benefits because they help people to lose weight. Lots of other things start to fall into place. If we release a lot of extra fat, our inflammation tends to go down. Triglycerides will often normalize. Cholesterol will normalize. For some people, when they lose a lot of weight, they're able to sleep better because their apnea may disappear or improve. It turns out that the GLP-1 agonists also have benefits for cardiac function. They seem to have benefits for the brain. They improve insulin sensitivity, uptake of glucose at the muscle cells. In short, they sound kind of miraculous. And in some ways, they kind of are. Many, many, many people at this point have used them. The challenge is, well, there's a couple of challenges. Number one is they're expensive. Number two, it's hard to get them from a doctor if you don't fall into very specific criteria, such as being obese or type 2 diabetic. And even then, it gets a little sketchy around which one they're going to give you. Definitely, people have their ways and they tend to be able to get their hands on what they need when they need it. But I have to say that as time goes on, we are finding out that, they're not without consequences, right? There's some reports, not a lot, but there are some reports of gastroparesis, which is a paralysis of the stomach. It's still early days. There's not a lot of information out there about this in terms of how many people actually have suffered this condition. It's not good news. Obviously, paralysis of the stomach is a big fat problem. Pancreatitis is another issue. That is a little bit more common. I'd say that in the Facebook community, we've seen definitely a couple of cases of pancreatitis brought on by taking these compounds. So we have pancreatitis, we seem to have some gastroparesis, although not much, still not a lot of cases, but it's still early days. There have been a couple of cases of intestinal blockages that have been reported. And then also there is, and this is relatively new information for me, I just kind of went digging into the research today and found that there is a paper out there that seems to link the use of these compounds with a slightly higher risk of thyroid cancer, and specifically thyroid medullary cancer, which can be pretty aggressive. Now, they're not huge numbers, but there does seem to be an increased risk, and there's still more clinical trials need to be made. Nevertheless, if you're someone who's very nervous about cancer, and certainly if you're someone with a history of thyroid cancer yourself or in your family, I would say in that case, these are probably not great compounds for you. And definitely, even with a history of cancer, there are definitely a lot of physicians that would steer their patients away from using these compounds. So Anyway, so we've all gotten really excited about these compounds. They've been vilified. They've been celebrated. It's been all over the map. There's been reports of Ozempic face, which is when people lose a lot of weight. Some people lose it in their face. And so they get really kind of hollow faced. It turns out that any weight loss, any dramatic weight loss, people will tend to lose weight in their face. And of course, there's the reports of people losing muscle. And I've talked about it on this podcast, another podcast before. For the most part, for most people, you can mitigate the lean mass or the muscle loss by eating a lot of protein, using things like essential amino acids and protein shakes, and of course, by exercising. Like at the end of the day, you can eat protein till the cows come home. You can drink protein shakes till the cows come home. If you don't actually exercise and give your body that signal that it needs muscle, it's not going to build it. Your body's too smart for that. Muscle is too metabolically expensive to build if it's not needed. So the truth of the matter is that this solo episode is not about the GLP-1 agonists. What it is about is what else is on the market that is relatively new that can help with fat loss so that maybe you don't need to take a GLP-1 agonist. One of the trends that we're seeing that is, I think it's a little bit unfortunate, and that is because the GLP-1 agonists are so good at what they do, they're kind of becoming the default for people. People are saying, why bother doing anything else if all I have to do is take a single shot once a week and the weight's just going to come off? And look, I kind of get that thinking. It's logical. I mean, if there's an easy way to do things, why not use the easy way? But what I would say is that in a world where there are certain consequences to these compounds, and we're still learning about the consequences, right? Because as time goes on, more people use them. That's how these whatever side effects are starting to pop up. But even more importantly, I think that one of the things we forget about, especially when we're using these things, is that if we don't change our diet and our lifestyle, if we don't rebuild our microbiome while we're using these compounds, you're going to end up being dependent on them for the rest of your life. And that's not practical. And quite frankly, it may not even be healthy. So what I wanted to do today was explore a couple of the new products that I've come across lately that I think offer really interesting alternatives and or supportive therapies to using either with, after, or instead of the GLP-1 agonists. So I've probably told you guys, I did use GLP-1 agonists last year, and they helped me to lose postmenopausal weight that I'd put on. And I've been able to, for the most part, to keep that weight off. This summer, things got a little dicey because I moved. I was eating out too much. I got lazy. Well, I didn't get lazy as much as I didn't have time to work out, not even with all my gadgets and stuff. Mostly, I just got lazy with my diet, and I started to put on some weight again. And so at that point, I started thinking, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to go back to the GLP-1 agonist, or am I going to look around and see what else is out there? Now, I'm really lucky because of what I do. People are constantly coming to me with new products, new ideas, and new ways of doing things. And so I wanted to talk to you about 3, maybe 4 things tonight, and some of the places you can get them. So they're competitive products. They are products. So I'm going to save the products for a minute. The first thing I want to say is, obviously, whether you're using a GLP-1 agonist or not, dialing in your diet is going to be critical. And I am not talking about just adopting a ketogenic diet or a paleo diet or whatever the case may be. I would invite you to work with a coach and find someone who can help you to figure out what is the right diet for you. In the absence of that, one of the eating plans that I have found to be the most effective and that I myself leaned on quite heavily during the time before I used the GLP-1 agonist, during the GLP-1 agonist, and after the GLP-1 agonist is Joel Green's immune-centric fat loss program, if you want to call it that. What cool thing about his program is that it offers you the opportunity to eat all kinds of different foods, to have meals that don't fall under any kind of plan, meals that you just might feel like eating, his plan offers you the opportunity to learn how to eat around those meals so that they don't affect you negatively. It's a little bit of work figuring it out. So there are some really good coaches around who have trained in teaching people, coaching people through this fat loss method. And I would encourage you to find one of those people. We have one in my Mighty Networks community. Her name is Deborah Wanger. She's amazing. So she would be a great guide for this. Another great tool, but this is for people who've got more time on the hands and really can do a little bit more research. You're the DIY kind of person, is that the Bioptimizers people, Wade Lightheart and Matt Gallant, have come out with a book called The Ultimate Nutrition Bible. And this book is unbelievable. It's got everything in it. It's got plans. It's got, it talks about different diets. Like, they are diet agnostic, which is near and dear to my heart as a philosophy. This is an incredible book. If you're the kind of person that wants to kind of dive into a Bible and really kind of get your head around things and do it yourself, this book is for you. Okay, so these books are fantastic, and I would encourage you, if you're the Nutrition Bible is an incredible resource. For Joel's program, you're better off finding yourself a coach. He does have a really good book called The Immunity Code, but I will tell you that reading the Immunity Code is really going to help you to understand why you're doing certain things, but it's a tough program to follow from that book. That's not the intention of the book. So finding a coach, someone who has trained with Joel, great idea. I did the course, but I don't coach people because I just don't have time, but I do have aligned to other coaches. So if you're looking for a coach for that method, let me know and I can connect you to a couple of people. Okay. I told you that there were certain products out there that I think are real game changers and relatively new in this space. There's one ingredient that is actually found in all three of the products that I'm going to talk to you about tonight. And this ingredient it's actually derived, I'm putting my glasses on because I had to write some of this stuff down so that I would remember all of it. It's derived from a yeast called Saccharomyces cerevisiae. So they process this yeast and it generates a kind of like a group of like protein hydrolysate. It's like a group of peptides that have been kind of grouped together and given the name of DNF-10. D like David, N like November, F like Frank, -10. So DNF-10, this is the ingredient. And you're going to find this ingredient in a number of different products. I'm going to tell you exactly what they are in a minute. And the products are quite different from each other. We have one from Integrative Peptides. The product's called Can't Wait. All that's in there is DNF-10. And I think they've put in Garcinia cambogia. So this is like another herbal thing that can help with weight loss. So that is your simplest formula of the three that I'm going to talk about. The next one is by a relatively new company in the States. They've been around for a couple of years, but they're very innovative in their formulas. The company's called Healthgevity. The website is healthgev.com. And Healthgevity is really interesting because not only do they have oral peptides that they sell, and if you guys have been paying attention the last few weeks, you know that the FDA has brought down a ruling that says that they don't want compounding pharmacies to compound injectable peptides anymore. It seems for the time being that the oral peptides are okay. So companies like Integrative Peptides or Healthgevity and even Level Up Health, the other company I'm going to talk about, they do offer some oral peptides, and they've been found to be pretty good. They're not, depends on the application, sometimes not quite as powerful as the injectables, but in a world where injectable peptides are becoming harder to come by or not as available, then looking at using oral peptides might become something that is a good idea. So in any event, Healthgevity has a bunch of these formulas that are very innovative. One of those formulas is called Ignite Plus. And it features, as one of its ingredients, DNF-10, which is really cool. But the other ingredients he's included in there are things to help to balance blood sugar, to optimize fat burning, to boost metabolism. So things like grains of paradise, things like he's got dihydroberberine in there, which is the more potent form of berberine. There's bitter melon. There's a whole bunch of these compounds. There's probably about 8 to 10 ingredients in this formula that synergistically kind of are designed to help to stabilize blood sugar and increase fat burning. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the details about what and how DNF-10 seems to do what it does. The third product, so we talked about the integrative peptides, can't wait. We talked about HealthJevity's Ignite Plus. So this is a more potent formula than even the first formula that they designed. And the third company is Level Up Health. Now, you guys who've been listening to my podcast for a while know that Level Up Health has this incredible formula called Ultimate GI Repair. It's an incredible formula that features a complete, just like this incredible stack of gut healing compounds. But in this case, this is a relatively new formula for these guys, and it is called Total Recomp, as in total recomposition. Now, Kyle, who's the owner of Level Up Health, is notorious for his stacks. He pulls no shots. He doesn't pull his punches, this guy. There's always and HealthJevity, I have to say, is the same. These guys are very, very adamant that they are going to deliver the therapeutic dose. There's no fairy dusting in their formulas at all. And in this Total Recomp, there's a huge list of ingredients, and all of them, again, it's all about helping the metabolism, helping to stabilize blood sugar, and helping the body to burn fat more efficiently. And it features DNF-10 as the star ingredient, including N-acetylcarnitine. It's got the L-Baiba, which HealthJevity has as well. It's got what else is in here? Coleus for scolin. It's got holy basil, which is really interesting. Holy basil is a really interesting herb. Anyway, grains of paradise. You guys can read. You can all go to the websites and figure it out. I don't want to just sit here and read ingredients to you. I wanted to talk to you about DNF-10 and how it works and why I think it's so interesting. I will tell you this. The first anecdote I have for you in terms of a use case scenario is there was a guy in my Mighty Networks community who came on one day completely unsolicited and said, "Hey, guess what? I've been using this Ignite formula for the last month. I haven't changed anything else. All I've been doing is taking 3 of these a day, and I have lost 10 pounds in a month." That was pretty amazing, right? Everybody kind of stood up and took note. Now, I will say that the formula that he was using was the original formula. The new one now is more beefed up than that one. So how does DNF-10 actually work? So like I mentioned before, it's derived from Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which is a type of yeast. And in the short term, what it seems to do is it seems to act on the hypothalamus, which is a part of your brain that regulates food drive, right? And it seems to reduce food intake by decreasing the secretion of something called neuropeptide Y, which is a neuropeptide that is linked to appetite. It also acts at the digestive level by helping to reduce ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone. Really cool. So makes us less hungry. Plus, it may quiet down some of that food noise that people complain about and they're always trying to address. And then over the longer term, it also seems to regulate the cellular secretion of leptin, which is a satiety hormone. So it's hitting all the major marks, right? So I will tell you that I have used it. And I've been using it, and the way there's a couple of different ways to use these compounds. Some people will take 1 capsule about 20 minutes before each meal. And in that sense, it seems to be really effective at balancing blood sugar. The way that I've been using it is 3 capsules kind of mid-morning. And what I found for me is that it seems to, at that dose and in that use case scenario, it seems to do exactly what I was saying. It quiets the food noise. It makes me, I just don't seem to get as hungry. And I'm going to tell you, it's not as noticeable as a GLP-1 agonist. Like when I did the GLP-1 agonist at first, I had no appetite. I didn't eat much. This one, you're still going to have an appetite. So the way I've described it to people is it's a little bit like, when you were learning to ride a two-wheeler. So at first you had those first you had those training wheels firmly on the ground. Then you started to kind of pick up the training wheels a little bit, and you would teeter a bit, but they would always catch you. So the GLP-1 agonists at their strongest is kind of like having those training wheels on the ground. There's no wiggle room. You're not going to fall off your bike. You're safe. There's almost nothing you can do wrong. And I say that knowing that there's definitely people out there that don't have as much success as others. But as a general rule, if you're on the right dosage and you've got good guidance, the GLP-1 agonist is the equivalent of having your training wheels firmly on the ground. Things like these formulas I'm talking to you about with DNF-10, they're kind of like having your training wheels off the ground. Not by much. You're not going to necessarily fall over, but you are going to have to work a little bit harder. You're going to have to lean into the exercise, the fitness. You're going to have to lean into getting enough sleep. You're going to have to lean into having a decent diet. You can't be running around eating burgers and fries. You may not be as hungry for them. I didn't notice, it's not appetite suppression. It definitely quiets the appetite, but you're still going to have to do the work. And I encourage people to do the work even when they're using the GLP-1 agonist, but you don't have to work as hard. Let's face it. With these compounds, you're going to have to work a little bit harder, but I do think that there's an opportunity here for those of you who have the bandwidth and the time and who don't want to use a GLP-1 agonist. Either it's not right for you or it's just not your jam. These would be a really interesting way of going about losing weight or trying to alter your body composition. Like I said, you're just going to have to work a bit harder at it. Now, there's one more category of products that I want to talk to you about tonight. We often talk about the microbiome. We often talk about how the microbiome is so critical to every single piece of our health. Weight loss or body composition is no different. When I did my gut testing this summer, it told me something that actually, it's not the first time I've heard this about me. This is something that seems to be a thing in my body. And frankly, it explains a lot, right? Like I've never, my whole life, I was never the lean person. I wasn't fat, but I was never that lean person. I always kind of had to work a little harder. And it turns out that one of the microbiome bacterial strains that is associated with lean people is Akkermansia. And what does Akkermansia do, you ask? Funny you should ask. Akkermansia promotes the secretion of GLP-1 in the gut. Like imagine that, a bacteria that promotes the GLP-1. That whole thing, the GLP-1 agonist that you're taking, that's the whole point. So here's the thing. Akkermansia, and you guys may have heard a podcast about this. I just recorded one with the company that makes this Akkermansia product. Akkermansia was really, really hard to manufacture. They had a really hard time isolating it, manufacturing it, stabilizing it so they could ship it. It's now available in a capsule. And when I first heard about it, I was like, I didn't buy it, right? Well, dig a little deeper, and here's what's really cool about this product. When you take this product and you take it with, they have a formula of phenols, so a phenol formula. And actually, if you ever did Joel Green's course, you will recognize a lot of these terms because he talks about Akkermansia. He talks about the phenols. He talks about feeding Akkermansia, the whole 9 yards. But with this product, for people like me who are low in Akkermansia in the gut, we can take this Akkermansia probiotic for about 2 or 3 months, make sure that we're feeding it with red phenols, right? So you're planting the seeds, you're fertilizing the seeds, and we're hoping that the Akkermansia is going to reseed the gut. So the idea with this probiotic is that we're not going to keep taking it indefinitely. We're going to take it for 2 or 3 months. We're going to keep taking those phenols. We're going to be eating berries and eating the foods that give us natural phenols so that we can regrow the species in our gut and we can start to secrete our own GLP-1 more consistently. So I've been doing this now for almost a month. I've been using the Akkermansia and I've been using Ignite Plus because that's the one I had on hand. I didn't have any Can't Wait, and my body recomp is here. I'll be using it, yes, next. I just haven't tried it yet. And I will tell you that I've definitely noticed that the food noise is quieter. I don't have the drive to overeat and I don't have the drive to be snacking all the time. So this has been my experience. I've spoken to a couple of people who are having the similar experience. So I wanted to record this podcast episode. It wasn't so much about selling product. I mean, look, the links for all these things are on my website under the Nat Recommend section. I'm not even going to give them to you here. Okay. They say I'm just not like this wasn't about plugging product, but this was about talking to you about alternatives to some of the peptides or some of these compounds that have become so ubiquitous in the world right now. And maybe there's other ways of getting the job done. And it's not going to work for everybody. Okay. So I'm going to say that for those of you who have been struggling with your weight for a really long time, you're just carrying around too much extra weight, you're just too stuck, or you've got type 2 diabetes, the GLP-1 agonist, at least in the short term, might be a better answer for you. But for the rest of you guys, if you've just got like maybe 10 or 20 pounds to lose and you have the time and the bandwidth to lean into this a little bit, really do more of the work, then these compounds might just be worth a look. So once again, to recap, DNF-10 is the main ingredient in products like Can't Wait, by Integrative Peptides, by Healthgevity's Ignite Plus, and by Level Up Health's Total Recomp. So those are the products that feature this DNF-10. The daily dose for DNF-10 is 500 milligrams. So you're going to want to read those bottles and make sure you take enough capsules to get to that 500 milligram dose. And then the backup, and then the next thing, and I would do both of these, I would also then do Akkermansia. I would take the Akkermansia. I mean, look, in a perfect world, you get your microbiome tested, find out and see if your Akkermansia levels are, on the low side. If they're on the low side, then supplementing with the Akkermansia product by Pendulum with the the phenol formula probably is a really good idea. Okay, so that's about it. Not giving you a diet plan, none of that stuff. I hope that this was useful to you. Let me know if you think if this was helpful and if you want more episodes like this, because as peptides start to become a little bit harder to get in the world, I was thinking that what would be kind of interesting would be a series of solo episodes where I would talk about alternatives to some of the most popular and common peptides that we use. Not that they're disappearing completely anytime soon, but just that, the world existed before peptides. The world will continue to exist without peptides. Again, they're not going anywhere. But I find that sometimes we forget that they're not the only thing around. And there are other strategies, other supplements, and other techniques that we can use to solve the same problem. So thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you guys. Let me know what you think. Let me know definitely if you decide to try any of these things, what your experience is. And that's it. That's all I got. Thanks so much. Actually, one last thing I want to tell you guys about is my Black Friday gift guide. That is going to be coming out real soon. So we should be having a landing page on my website any day. But if there is no landing page on the website, natnidham.com, when you go check it out, make sure that you sign up for my newsletter because I'll be announcing the gift guide there. So once again, we're going to have a great Black Friday gift guide with some of my most favorite products ever and the big deals that are going to be available around American Thanksgiving this year. So make sure you go to natniddam.com and sign up for my newsletter and or look for that landing page for the gift guide. It should be there by the time this airs, but just in case it's not, the newsletter is your way to go. All right. Thanks.